Here at Lake Macquarie, more fires as crews fought a difficult battle against shifting winds. Just before 11 this morning, fire units were called to Killaban Bay near Toronto to a blaze believed to have been deliberately lit. An old dump site went up in flames. Just down the road, St Joseph's School was evacuated as a precautionary measure. The 350 young students taken to a nearby oval as the fire skirted their school. The students handled the move with military precision.
We do regular evacuations, and it takes 4 minutes to evacuate the whole school.
Ambulances were placed on standby, but no one was injured. New South Wales Fire Brigade and Bush Fire Brigade units monitored the fires. With the changing winds, nobody could take it easy.
This fire now is contained and under control.
No private property was damaged. The children allowed back to school early in the afternoon. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The hills around Cessnock appear to be letting off steam, with smoke from fires on 5 fronts. More than 1,000 hectares have already been scorched, most uninhabited bush with no lives or homes threatened. But with the fire danger rated very high, Cessnock wasn't taking any chances.
The fuel loads are not very high, but the problem is that everything is just so dry, the humidity is very low, and therefore the rate of spread of a fire like that can be quite fast.
The 80 local volunteers have been reinforced with another 50 firefighters from country brigades as far away as Moree and Inverell. At this stage, the fires have been contained to the bushland in the hills, but if the dry weather and strong winds continue, there is a real danger the flames could descend on the populated areas below.
But if it just continues dry weather and we have bigger and bigger areas burning, then it becomes a real threat to Cessnock.
Most of the blazes are believed to be backburning gone wrong. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The 4 Sydney sailors were flown by rescue helicopter to Lismore late this morning after battling huge seas and howling winds for most of the night. The drama began when a fishing trap became entangled around Ozfire's propeller off the coast of Port Macquarie, the yacht finally spotted near Yamba.
We tried to get into Coffs Harbour and had no engine and got caught on the wrong tack out to sea and hit with 60 or 70 knot winds and had no alternative but to continue in the direction we ended up in, which was about 50 or 60 nautical miles out to sea, and it's pretty horrible stuff.
The Newcastle-based search and rescue chopper experienced mechanical difficulties while rough conditions prevented the Lismore crew from lowering a winch line.
The mast sway on the yacht was incredibly violent. The position of the yacht was getting thrown around, and it was impossible to do a winch off the yacht there itself.
After 2 failed rescue attempts from the air, the oarship Iron Kembler sheltered the craft while the crew clambered into a life raft. The ordeal ended at about 11 o'clock this morning when the 4 crew of the Ozfire were winched on board the Lismore-based rescue helicopter. The disabled 14-metre Lake Macquarie vessel, which was on its way from Hamilton Island to Sydney, was last reported drifting more than 80 kilometres off Yamba. Owner Doug Coulter was this afternoon relieved to hear the crew had escaped unharmed. Ozfire, built for the Sydney to Hobart, not so lucky.
The latest I've heard, but it's unconfirmed, is that the boat has actually sunk.
Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
The region's visual arts students have been entering Maitland's Art Prize for 18 years. Almost all previous winners have made a career in the art world, so winning the $500 council-sponsored award can lead to bigger and better things. This year, more than 100 university and TAFE students have entered, their works now on show at the Maitland City Gallery.
There are some outstanding works. This year, surprisingly, there are very few sculptural pieces. Normally we're fairly strong in sculpture or ceramic work, but not so many this year, quite a lot of paintings.
The students are also competing for the now 2-year-old Kerry John Framing Award for Plant and Wildlife Illustration. The winners will be revealed at the official opening of the exhibition tonight.
Jet Fighter World opened in 1991 with only 3 planes on loan from Williamtown RAF Base, some memorabilia and a vision for the future.
We started with a couple of hundred in the first month, and we're getting over 50,000 a year through the front door now, and that's increasing all the time.
The museum has been offered 8 fighter aircraft but has no room to display them. Negotiations are underway with the company's major sponsors to fund a new hangar, which could cost up to $100,000. If the money is raised, it could be opened as soon as January.
We're a little bit crowded. Hopefully we'll get another hangar built by a major sponsor in the near future, and when we get that filled, we'll be a much bigger tourist attraction.
Jet Fighter World is preparing for an invasion. With the school holidays starting on Friday, the latest addition to the fleet will be rewired to enable the original controls to work. The wingless model sure to score a direct hit in the popularity stakes with holidaymakers.
With its residential and industrial surrounds, planners say Wickham is well placed to become the city's first specially designed urban village.
It's a village in the sense that it's much more self-sufficient. You can walk to most things, shops, schools, the waterfront, and that kind of scale of intensity was what Wickham used to be like.
Perth-based Professor Peter Newman has studied urban villages around Australia and overseas. Funded by the Building Better City scheme, he's prepared a special strategy for Wickham and believes the Honeysuckle project is only half of the inner city's revitalisation equation.
The other side of it needs also to be upgraded, where you can have strategic housing that will show that the area is upgrading, that people can invest there with confidence, and that it will become an attractive place for the future.
To cope with the growing need for better transport links to Newcastle's port, Council is considering an overpass from Stewart Avenue to Wharf Road. But Professor Newman's strategy does not support the idea, claiming it would split a pedestrian-based community. Adding fuel to the rail line debate, he believes the future lies in dumping the present system, replacing it with light rail such as trams.
I would predict that Newcastle will see in its future a light rail option that will not only run down that corridor, but it'll run out other streets and will link together the whole of the Newcastle region.
Nine-year-old Jordan Ardle was mauled by a bull terrier at Swansea last Sunday evening.
It ran out and it was growling and barking, then it ran and latched up onto my leg.
Jordan's injuries required 15 stitches. A search of the area failed to find the dog.
I'm worried that there is a very dangerous dog out there and somebody should be able to say, we know where this dog lives.
Elaine Ardle says the dog could have attacked her 2-year-old daughter, who was with the boys at the time.
If it hadn't been my son, it might have been my baby daughter. It could have killed her.
Anyone with information should contact Swansea Police. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Mulbring farmer Jeff Daly has already been wiped out by drought and he doesn't want it to happen again. His cattle can't produce enough to make his 30 hectares viable, so he plans to build 4 100-metre-long sheds to accommodate 88,000 chickens.
We need a good, reliable income, and the chicken industry certainly gives us that.
Last night, Cessnock Council approved the plan despite protests from some neighbours.
Well, it will permanently ruin this valley.
They're a case of hysteria, I think.
Council's decision went against the advice of its Department of Environmental Services, which claims the sheds would be an unacceptable impact on scenic resources, unsuitable to the site, the location of the shed would be contrary to its development control plan, and the quality of access to the site would be unacceptable. Some neighbours are also concerned about the possible smell from the thousands of birds.
It is a fairly densely populated rural area, and there are a lot of people around that would be adversely affected by it.
And we're going to use the new tunnel ventilated method of growing chickens, and that combined with Ingham's growing procedures prevent the building up of ammonias and the building up of compost, which generates the ammonia, which creates the smell.
Neighbours opposed to the plan say they'll take their case to the Land and Environment Court to get the decision reversed. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's been a week since the Utah-Rucker collision, the latter ending up with broken ribs. After resting for several days, Rucker has returned to the court, and while he appeared to move freely this morning, a decision on what role he will play in the game, if any, won't be made until tomorrow, after further consultation with medical specialists.
He's determined to play, and it's a game that we have to win, and Derek is committed to winning, and he is a pretty tough little customer, so we expect him to say yes.
To be assured of a playoff position, Newcastle must beat North Melbourne, a side which heads the NBL and has a better record on the road than at home. Despite this, the Falcons are confident of qualifying with or without the services of Rucker, Tony Jensen and Sean Dennis given the added responsibility.
It's a lot, but it's something, I guess, why you're in the team to back him up, and if we can do it, it's great. I think we did a reasonable job of it at Illawarra. So we've been preparing all week for Derek not to play, so I think we should be able to do a fairly good job.
I was going to say, you both seem to relish the opportunity down the Strait last Saturday night.
The dispute led to a 3-week stoppage at the plant, which ended early this month. And today, 300 of the 700 employees involved in the campaign turned out for a meeting to hear a report on the latest developments. This time, their union is anxious to avoid the financial burden another lengthy stoppage would inflict.
We need to protect the workers because they did it tough last time, and some of them probably haven't still recovered. And we needed to bring it back to them today to see if they wanted to keep the campaign going.
A claim made by union officials at the meeting that Tomago Aluminium was unwilling to have the matter go to arbitration was later denied by the plant's manager, Barry Goldstiver.
We will jointly ask for arbitration with them, but on the basis that it goes to a full bench, because there are issues of principle that the Commission's never dealt with before, and that relates to how do you share productivity at the enterprise level.
But Mr Goldstiver warned that all previous agreements would have to be off and a fresh start made.
The arbitration might lead to a better result, it might lead to the same result, or it might lead to a worse result. That's the risk you take when you go to arbitration.
Late today, a further meeting between union delegates and Tomago Aluminium management planned for next Monday was still on the agenda.
Having played just one full game of reserve grade, Paul Scoveguard was plucked from the bench by coach Robert Finch and selected at 5'8" for last Sunday's final against St George. His success and maturity belied his 20 years. The former West and Waratah junior awarded with the chance to be part of the club's first senior title.
Bit of a miracle, I could say, because I was just hoping to make it with the 21s, and through, I suppose, a bit of bad form and a bit of luck, Finchie's shown confidence in me, and yeah, I'm really happy to be out there playing reserve grade.
Bill Peden is another who 12 months ago could not have begun to predict events this season. Formerly from Cessnock, Peden has been restored to the starting lineup after spending 2 matches on the bench.
Wasn't expecting to even be with the Knights, and to get the last minute call up and make the grand final, it's great.
Both are confident the Knights can avenge last year's grand final loss and admit the pre-game tension is starting to take hold.
Hopefully come Sunday, talk to a few of the older fellas and settle me down a bit, but it will be a big game on Sunday. I will be plenty nervous, I'd say.
Meantime, the Knights today announced that $1 million will be spent upgrading corporate and public areas at Marathon Stadium.
A 41-year-old man was trapped by smoke and fire in this railway parade house just after 9 this morning when a neighbour tried to free him.
The smoke was coming out the front door as well, and he couldn't open the door, and I couldn't open the door, and I ran back then and rang the police and the fire brigade.
But the next attempt was more successful, with a passerby dragging the man out through a window.
Well, apparently she was an off-duty nurse, and apparently she heard a slight explosion and someone screaming, and was good enough to get the person out, and luckily for everyone, safely.
The man was taken to John Hunter Hospital suffering smoke inhalation and was later released. Fire officers say the man is lucky to be alive and have praised the quick and selfless actions of the rescuer.
Oh, very heroic, very heroic. Any sort of situation like that, she deserves full credit.
Fire crews contained the fire to the kitchen, with a stain of smoke leaving a visible reminder of the blaze on the rest of the building. It's believed the misuse of a kitchen appliance started the fire. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It's hard to believe, but this playful 5-year-old could be the fatal link that infects the New South Wales racing industry with the mystery illness. The unraced gelding was brought to Newcastle just a few weeks ago from the contaminated Vic Rail stables in Brisbane. The horse has been quarantined at the Broadmeadow racetrack as a precaution, with the result of blood samples to be known in the next few days.
Once they suspect an exotic disease may be occurring, the department then takes over and tries to isolate as much as possible.
The killer virus has already stopped racing in Queensland after the death of 13 horses from the Vic Rail stables. Newcastle Jockey Club vet Jamie Barnes says if the virus spreads to other states, it could destroy an industry which generates $10 billion a year and employs tens of thousands of people. But Jamie Barnes says it's not just the racing industry that could be crippled. He says if the virus spreads, it could destroy Australia's animal export markets.
Quite apart from the tremendous death toll it'd have in the horse population and the monetary side of that, it would also vastly affect our exports from other areas.
It's still not known what the virus is or where it came from. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The Nomad Club was riddled with gunshots at around 5 o'clock Sunday morning. Police aren't sure what weapons were used, but at least 60 rounds penetrated the building in Chinchen Street, Islington. Neighbours were awoken by the noise.
4 bangs, then I heard a screech, and then I heard men screaming, and then the car went off.
Just hours before the Islington clubhouse was shot at, a building also owned by the Nomads in Muswellbrook was firebombed. A projectile is believed to have been thrown from a passing car. However, the fire failed to take hold. The building was not badly damaged. While police believe the two incidents are related, they're refusing to speculate on what may have led to the attacks. They're playing down reports of a gang dispute, saying that all lines of inquiry are being followed. The Greenpoint Action Committee collected more than 11,000 signatures calling for state government help with the Lakeside estate. The reams of paper were handed over to local member Don Bowman, who will pass them on to the government. Supporting the move today was Mayor John Kilpatrick. While Council and the Greenpoint Action Committee are united in their call for state government financial help, they appear to be at odds over exactly what that money will be used for. Council wants the money to rejuvenate part of the site, preparing it for a public reserve. However, the Greenpoint Action Committee says the money, if it's forthcoming, should go towards purchasing part of a 60-hectare area designated by Macloys for residential development. That, however, is in direct conflict with the agreement reached between Council and Macloys.
The Council has made a deal with Macloys. The Council have reduced that to writing. The Council is proceeding with the rezonings in accordance with that agreement. So we're certainly not reneging or changing on the agreement we have with Macloys.
The resident group says it doesn't want to jeopardise the deal, but it believes buying the ridgetop land off Andrew Road is a priority.
Council's been in a difficult spot negotiating this arrangement with the landowner, and we appreciate and acknowledge that they've done as much as they're able to do or prepared to do, but the site really deserves better.
Council has already been refused financial help from the government. It's hoped the petition may change that decision.
Reduced coal prices squeezed $300 million out of Australia's export earnings last year. According to the union, 1 in 20 miners lost their jobs as Japanese coal cartels sent Australian negotiators scurrying with savage price cuts. Miners' strikes on the home front divided the industry, and the government rejected union pleas for a pricing authority. The industry is now attempting to regather before the next round of price negotiations. Unionists sitting down with business leaders.
They recognise that we do have a number of difficulties. Maybe we have proposals for different solutions to the problems, but they do recognise there's a problem and that we've all got to get together in the interests of the community and Australia as a nation.
John Maitland says Australian coal negotiators are just too polite and don't play as a team. He says the only way of beating the Japanese is with a tough, concerted effort. Mr Maitland says Australia, which provides 50% of Japan's coal, must now put its own interests first. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Located 60 kilometres north of Inverell, the Pindari Dam enlargement scheme will provide a reliable supply of water to irrigators across the northwest, as well as additional flood discharge capacity. The $75 million project includes raising the concrete-faced rock-filled wall by 40 metres, building a new 350-metre wide spillway, as well as a new intake tower and outlet works. State Minister for Land and Water Conservation George Souris today officially launched the start of filling.
The original Pindari Dam is 37,000 megalitres
and we have a current storage of 37% of that. The new storage, the commencement of which is from today, will be 312,000 megalitres, and the present amount of water in the dam would represent only 4% of that.
The project has been partly funded by Border Rivers irrigators, who have contributed $37.5 million through higher annual water charges. Mr Souris says the benefits from the increased storage capacity will bring valuable rewards.
Its importance to the agricultural and irrigation industries inland and the north and northwest of New South Wales should not be underestimated. This is a most vital project for the sustainability of our economy and our population inland.
The beach came to the park today, and while some children didn't bring their spades, castle building was no obstacle for the resourceful. Festival mascot Kanura the Clown proved a colourful comrade, with children queuing for a chat. Budding artists weren't overlooked either, and for any children with ambitions of driving a rig, this road transport simulator was almost the real thing. Some children preferred a more exotic mode of transport. For teenagers, a temporary half-pipe set the scene for the only wheels to ride.